Dirty Birds, what's up? And welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. I'm your host, Will McFadden. I'm joined by Amna, Subhan, and Taylor Vismor. It is Tuesday afternoon. That feels weird to say. After a late Monday Night Football game, we're all up late working, covering the game. So you are getting this podcast a little bit later than usual, but honestly, it's a good thing. I think that we have had some time to sit and digest this one. The Falcons won 15-9 in Las Vegas, but Amna, what do you do when a win doesn't really feel like a win? Because I think that was the prevailing takeaway, at least on social media, at least with the people that I talked to, is, yeah, the Falcons won, and the but felt pretty big last night. So after being able to sleep on this one, have your thoughts changed at all on the game?
Not really. I kind of took away from it feeling like, okay, a win is a win. And I quite literally wrote in my notebook, a win is a win, and then in all caps, but. So you were right on point with that. We're going into week 16. This is where this team, when you looked at them in October, you thought maybe they'd be peaking. Maybe they would have already, had the division in hand and they would have gone into these last few games ready for the playoffs. And that is not what this team looks like right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you do. A win is a win, and I think the Falcons really needed it. But there is a big but. I think on paper, this Falcons team is by far and away better than the Raiders team, and they absolutely should have won. I don't think the final score, they should have won convincingly. I just think that the way this game was played was a very conservative approach of we can win this, we can beat this team, and we're going to do it in the most simple, conservative manner to make sure we can get back in the win column. And I think that's what you saw last night. Yeah,
and I do think that like the word conservative when it comes to a sporting event or a game plan is a little bit of has a negative connotation, certainly amongst the fan base, because I think a lot of people want to see an aggressive approach. They want to see you going for the jugular. They want to see explosive plays and you really laying it all out there. But there is some logic and some sense to saying, hey, this is a primetime game. It's a different schedule. We are on the road, and man, we need a win as badly as anything. So let's take the element of kind of risk out of it. We've got a great running back. They are not very good.
Two great running backs.
No slight to Tyler Algier there, but they don't have a great running defense. Their offense isn't lighting the world on fire. Our defense, can affect the quarterback as they've done the last couple of weeks, trust the secondary. So you can kind of see how when they're looking week to week, and that is something that I do credit Raheem Morris and his staff for doing, is kind of fine-tuning their game plan to fit what they feel is best to win each and every Sunday or Monday, as was the case last night. And yet, when you're late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and the game is still very much in the balance, you're like, why are we not putting these guys away? And then you see late in the game, as the NFL often does, it tightens right back up, and everybody is kind of stressed out and freaking out. And so, Taylor, we'll go right back to you. Do you feel any better about the Falcons, even though they were able to snap that 4-game losing streak?
I think honestly for me, it's a little too early to say, because I think there was a lot of, thoughts and feelings from the media and from fans about this 4-game losing streak. And I don't even know what those thoughts and feelings of were for the players and coaches, right? To go in there and kind of get that losing streak off your back a little bit. So I think this coming week, that will be a little bit more of a testament of who this team is for the remainder of the regular season. I think their ability to go in and finally get a win, I can't say what this team looks like out of that game, right? They scored 15 points. They allowed 9 points. And I think it was just an okay performance. Nothing really made me, other than special teams, I wasn't very impressed all around.
Yeah, it feels almost like you're like, do we think they're going to be looser after this win, right?
Hope.
You did get that monkey off your back.
And ideally, you would want to get right and win convincingly and kind of dominate a 2-11, now 2-12 team. But then you're coming right back and you have the Giants who are in the same position. So you kind of have...
These two were neck and neck for the first pick in the NFL draft.
And you kind of get the chance to do that at home. So I am curious to see if they're able to kind of get that monkey off their back and if that really makes a difference.
Yeah, you mentioned special teams as an aspect that stood out. But I do think that the defense kind of right up until that last couple of drives in the fourth quarter played really well. They had 4 sacks yet again. I've got a note in here. So they are the only defense in the NFL with an active streak of at least 4 sacks in 3 consecutive games, which is crazy considering where we were in the bye week, right? This was the sky is falling pass rush. And now they are the only team in the NFL with at least 4 sacks in 3 straight games. So that's a big green check mark in the improvement column. Special teams, Kadarius Hodge making huge plays. Bradley Pinion also really effective yesterday in just keeping them pinned back. And so you could see again just how the shell of this approach was coming together. We're going to pin them deep. We're going to make Desmond Ridder and this Raiders offense drive the whole length of the field. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against this defense. They weren't really able to. And then you flip on the other side, and the run game was still effective. The offensive line looked strong all night long. Bijan's vision was great. What do you like about the run game, Amna?
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah?
No, he looked great, and he looks like a kid that's really coming into his own in his second year. You find his patience looks a little bit better, where it's like on each drive, it's not like he's not getting tackled in the backfield. He's not getting 1 or 2 yards. He's finding a way to even create a little bit more off things that didn't look like it. We definitely know that of Tyler Algier, and there was one play where it's he got hit with 2 guys, and he's like, that's not going to matter to me, and he keeps going. But you're starting to see Bijan really take a hold of that as well and really become a workhorse back for them.
So those are some of the things we liked, but let's obviously go ahead and get into some of the things that we need to see improve. And unfortunately, it's still some of the same things, right? And I think you can't separate the conservative approach that this team had from the play at quarterback, because at times it did really feel like the mitigation of risk pertained directly to number 18. And Kirk finished this game 11 of 17, 112 yards. He did have a 30-yard touchdown pass to Drake London, which was really nice. You know, a double move, a slant and go. He had a nice pump fake that really got the corner to bite. He did throw an interception kind of right at the beginning of the second half there. And so I'm trying to kind of make the sense of how this team continues forward, especially in the midst of a playoff race, while still putting, for lack of a better word, kid gloves on the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think I'm not envious of the people that have to have that conversation and figure out what to do moving forward. I think, I saw this stat, I'll read it out. Falcons faced 1st and 10 24 times on Monday night. They ran the ball 23 out of 24 of those times. The other one was Kirk Cousins' interception when he threw it. So I think what you're seeing from Zach Robinson and this offensive staff is I don't know how to properly say this, is just we have to make sure that Kirk Cousins believes in Kirk Cousins before we can too, in a way.
I like that.
I thought if he had a touchdown like he did with Drake, that the bear would get off the back a little bit, and then you would see, him kind of progress and move. But then he had the interception, and I wonder, as not someone that's part of this organization, just someone from a national scope, of what do you do from here? You have 3 games left. You have to win them. You're going to go to Washington and play the Commanders. That's a harsh place to play. Those fans are crazy.
Especially now.
And it's a Dan Quinn defense.
Yep.
And what
they feast on turnovers,
right? What do you do? Because yes, while you try to go 1-0 every single week, and I know that the team is focusing on the Giants, I'm looking at the Commanders games thinking you cannot lose that game. That is a very important game to win, because you can win out, and so can Tampa. And I think if you beat the Washington Commanders, you could still possibly make the playoffs if you beat them. And so I don't know if Zach Robinson and this offensive staff found that solace in Kirk Cousins last night.
Yeah. I'm not do you think, because you wrote a win is a win, but right, in the game breakdown yesterday, and I wrote this was a 2-phase takeover, but they're going to need all 3 phases to catch the Bucs. Do you think that they can run the table the rest of the way while managing the quarterback position in the way that they kind of feel like they have to at this point in time? I know that's a tough question.
No, I
right?
mean, like, you're playing the Giants next week. That you can, game plan specific. You're playing a team that's looking for the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah, it could be a very similar approach to this past.
Then looking again at that Washington Commanders game, you can't have a conservative approach. You can't just try to make sure that everything else is going well while you're trying to fix this one thing and hope that it gets there. And I just don't see that being a thing. But they're very aware of it. Kirk and Raheem both said after the game, like, it's no mystery. He has to play better. It's one of those things where I don't know if it's like his own process where he needs to figure that out. I mean, he's a 13-year vet at this point. Like, what is it going to be for him to get to where he needs to for him to be able to take this team to where it seemed like they were heading when they were 6-3?
Yeah, and Raheem after the game said, and I'll quote here, he's got to play better, talking about Kirk. Obviously, you've got to go out there and look at everything. He wants to play better. He's got to play better. We've got to find a way to get him to play better. So that right there, the coaching staff is taking some responsibility. The team is taking some responsibility. But again, going back to the pass rush and kind of that particular issue going into the bye week, you can win games when your pass rush isn't necessarily firing on all cylinders. I think in the NFL, it is very hard to win games when the kind of glaring thing that you're trying to mitigate is the quarterback position. And that just speaks to the importance of that one position. And Raheem likes to say, coaches and quarterbacks get an overshare of kind of the blame and the credit. And yet, there's kind of a reason for that, at least with the quarterback position. It's because of the impact they have on the game.
And that's why the Falcons also invested so much in the quarterback position over the offseason, both in the draft and in free agency. Like, if you have 2 phases of the ball which are clicking and they did it so well, the other phase is the most important phase.
Well, I mean, in the NFL, you cannot win without a good quarterback. You cannot win in the NFL without a good quarterback. I mean, you can put together some games, but you cannot win throughout the entirety of the season without a good quarterback. And I think, like we've been talking about, I mean, he only threw the ball 17 times. Bijan Robinson touched the ball more than it left Kirk Cousins' hand.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point.
No, it's crazy. And then also, the way that special teams played, they had great field position many times in this game. I know you have the exact stat, but they weren't able to do much about it. And then they had 2 takeaways. The third one was at the very end of the game, but they weren't able to capitalize off that as well. These are the rest of your team is handing you opportunities to go and find that confidence and to go and get right, and they just weren't able to do that.
Yeah, that stat you mentioned. So the Falcons had 4 drives start in Raiders territory. They only came away with 6 points on those drives, right? And that's kind of the other side of that conservative approach, which they were executing very well. You mentioned Bradley Pinion's pinning him back deep, and then the defense getting a safety. How about that?
Yeah.
Contavious Street busting in there, Zach Harrison busting in there. Everybody else came to play. They balled out. The offensive line, the defensive line, the secondary, everybody kind of showed up and they were executing it well. And yet when you look at, hey, you're getting those opportunities in plus territory, you got to come away with points. And more importantly, touchdowns. That is kind of still the crux for this team. And it just highlights why we pay attention so much to the offensive side and the quarterback position, especially it's because points matter in this league. And it's just really hard to see a path to the playoffs if you're going to continue to get at least the offensive performance, specifically in the passing game that Atlanta had last night. So we'll kind of end on the passing focus and kind of the offensive focus. I do want to touch on Bijan a little bit more, but before we get to that, is there anything that you guys would like to fundamentally see change about this offense, maybe structurally, more explosive passes, more play action, things like that, over these final 3 games to really get it jump-started?
You'd want to say play action because that's something that they highlighted and pinpointed in the bye week, saying we can do that. Kirk's been really great at that all of his career. But then you saw it last night, and the Raiders blew it up a
couple of times at least.
A good few times, and it didn't look cohesive. So I guess that you could point to that and say maybe that's where they can continue to tweak obviously, if it's getting blown up, you have some tweaks that you can make to try to get Kirk going that way. It's a tough question to be like, okay, what can you magically and fundamentally change? I think it all just kind of goes back to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think if I could change anything, it would be the confidence, because that's where your explosive plays come from. You're going out there, you're playing confident, you're cutting it loose, you're having fun. And of course, this offense, like any other offense in the NFL, they start to stack and make really good moves and put together complete games when they're making explosive plays throughout all 4 quarters. And so for Drake London and Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts and all the other pass catchers to have these awesome explosive plays, it does start at that quarterback position, and you have to play confident. You have to play like your back is against the wall and you have something to prove.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because you look at the team that Atlanta is now chasing in their own division. I mean, who's playing with more confidence right now than Baker Mayfield? Right? Every single throw that he has, he's ripping it. He's running the ball. Like, they put up over 500 yards on Sunday. That is really the dichotomy of kind of where both the Falcons and the Bucs are right now, and it's a stark contrast to what you're getting in just the feel of the offense. And when you look back to the way Atlanta was playing in October and the way they're playing right now, it feels night and day, and I think confidence plays a huge role in that. But somebody who is on a roll of their own is Subhan. And he surpassed 1,000 rushing yards last night. First time in his career. Obviously, it's only his second year, so that's great to see. But to do that in just 14 games is truly a testament to his growth, his maturity, and also the offensive line. Again, I feel like there is a connectiveness or a connectivity between that group and the running back. Obviously, it's their second year working together. They've got Dwayne Ledford as the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator, so there's some continuity there as well. A big credit to him. But Subhan had 125 yards on 22 rushes. He had another 10 yards receiving, so 135 total. But he had 43 rushing yards over expected per Next Gen Stats, which was his most in a game this season. Taylor, what'd you see out of Subhan? And do you think, is Subhan kind of capable of being the focal point over the rest of the final 3 games and maybe delivering for this offense in the way that we're hoping?
I'll start with that question. I just don't know that a running back can do that, right? Like Saquon, he is one of the faces of the team for the Eagles, right? But he's not the focal point. He is an equal with everyone else on that offense, right? And I think you see like Saquon and you see Derrick Henry as well. Like they've got other people to alleviate them, because if you can shut down a Subhan, if you can shut down a Saquon and Derrick Henry, then you've got no game, right? You can't just be on the running back. And so I get your point, and I totally see it. And I do think that, Subhan is kind of the number one guy, it seems like, to get the ball, to get the rock. But I will say there was an anecdote, a little story that I saw on Slack last night about, I guess, Subhan took a picture with the offensive linemen and the offensive group.
Yeah.
And he said, this is a team accomplishment. This is a team win. And if you talk to Subhan and Tyler both, they never talk about themselves without talking about the offensive line, because if that offensive line, if that offensive front cannot put together some good gaps for them, they can't get anything done. So I think it's an enormous testament to the guys at the front and the opportunities that they give Subhan. And I love that he kind of gives them their flowers as well.
Yeah, I was listening to 92.9 on the way in today and heard Mike Johnson. I think it was Subhan was talking with Dave Archer after the game, but he was like, I'd like to thank God and I'd like to thank the offensive line. Yeah. I was like, that feels like the correct order, my man. They're 1A, 1B after last night's performance. But yeah, there is that duality. There's got to be the complement with your offense, because it does just feel like a running back is a little bit easier to take away than the entirety of a passing game. And so that is where, when we talk about play action, it feels like that is just such a missing element to this team, because your run game is so effective right now.
Yeah, and Subhan can really allow that to open up, and we'll see if that's the case. But yeah, that is something to point to. And when we look at it, it's like confidence, play action. I feel like those are the 2 things we've pinpointed where it's like, I don't know what else you can look at this point in the season. You kind of know who you are in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to navigate from there.
And that's something that I've been trying to rack my brain thinking about play action specifically. And you are who you are. That's a great point. And I look back at when do you form that identity? A lot of it happens over the summer in training camp. That's when you're installing a lot of the offense. And once you hit the season, it's kind of like full go week to week. And no, I don't think Kirk is feeling any ill effects right now of his Achilles. However, in the summer, while he was still working his way back slowly and they're installing this offense, maybe they did lean a little bit more on pistol. Maybe they did lean a little bit more on some of these things that weren't going to stress him injury-wise in that way. And now that wouldn't be an issue. I think it's just simply like a matter of time. Like, I don't know if you have the ability and the hours in the day to install 35 plays of play action and rep them to the point that you feel super comfortable about it in a game. So I kind of think that ship has sailed a little bit and you are what you are. And unfortunately, it just feels like they're missing one key element of what this offense could be. But let's flip over and talk a little bit more about the defense and special teams, because I mentioned those 4 sacks in 3 consecutive games. D'Angelo Malone had 2 sacks. Great to see. He's been like a special teams stud for the last couple years, but they worked him into the mix. He got a couple of sacks. Caden Ellis had another sack. He's got 4 on the season, tied with Arnold Ebiketie for the team lead. And then Zach Harrison had a sack, which it's great to see some of these names that we've been waiting for really surface and pop up. And Arnold Ebiketie generated 5 pressures as well, the most of any Falcons player in a single game this season. Taylor, what did you see from the pass rush?
I just think that I don't know what changed after bye week.
I've been trying to figure that out, right?
And then all of a sudden,
I literally have no idea what changed.
It's like they all ate power-up mushrooms from like the Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, right.
Store.
Like, I've got no idea, but it is working. It's clicking, and I love it. I love seeing like AK. Like, I love seeing him like get the pressures, get the sacks that he's been able to get the last couple of weeks. And of course, like Zach Harrison getting in the mix. He was kind of a quieter rookie on the field last year. And so to be able to see him come in and he was the one that got the tackle for the safety. And so I just think it's not all one guy. It's not just 2 guys. It's really everyone in this defensive unit. Like D'Angelo Malone, I don't even know that he was playing a ton of reps in the beginning of the season. And all of a sudden, like, he's in the rotation. He's in the mix. And so I think it's so interesting that everyone on this defensive, like really front 7, has been playing up to everyone's level and everyone's standard.
Yeah, and I mean, they were doing this, and they have been doing this, honestly, without Troy Anderson even in the lineup. And he went on IR, so it's a shame that his regular season is going to be done. But he felt like somebody who would unlock especially kind of that pass rush with just what he was able to do and allow Caden Ellis to do. So the fact that they're able to still generate this pressure without a player that we thought would be pretty instrumental in all of that is very impressive. But they also got a couple of picks, notably on the very last play of the game.
Which I'll say, like, just in terms of, like, parallel structure, like, the last Monday Night Football game ended when Jesse Bates intercepted Jalen Hurts. Oh, yeah. I love that.
No, I
just have to point it out.
Of, like, are they going to be the Falcons versus Eagles? Are they gonna win on this 2-minute drive? Like, I was not thinking about Jesse Bates. Like, oh, he intercepted it last time against the Eagles. No, I thought that they were going to pull in Atlanta, and score on that 2-minute drive early.
Yeah, I wrote a story about how turnovers were the focal point of this defense going into this one, and they're able to do that. They got a forced fumble. D. Alford had the forced fumble, and then also like just tip away from an interception, and then obviously the one from Jesse, and then also Justin. It's good
the turnover drive or the turnover margin,
which is huge.
It was.
We're looking for wins here.
Yeah, I think before the game, I tweeted out like 3 keys was, get over 150 rushing yards. They accomplished that. Win the turnover battle. They accomplished that. Be over 50% in the red zone. They didn't even get into the red zone.
So 0-0.
It's kind of like an in/A, not applicable. But yeah, no, I was kind of like yelling at the TV because obviously you are always taught, hey, just bat the ball down, like don't put it in play. So when Jesse was going for that interception, I was kind of like, what are you doing? But then it was Jesse.
It's Jesse Bates.
You kind of can't be mad at Jesse Bates, especially when he secures the pick and ultimately comes away with it. But Taylor, seeing that performance from the defense and special teams, the blueprint is there for this team to make a run, to finish this thing off with 3 straight wins. That's where it just comes back to the full complementary and 3-phase aspect of you got two amigos who are just waiting for that third amigo to jump right on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah. So I think I say this every time I do this podcast. I do a pregame show, if you guys don't know, with Derek Rackley, former player here, and he always talks about playing complementary football, and we talk about it a lot. And he always says, it sounds so easy. We need special teams to do really well. We need defense to play really well. We need offense to play really well. It sounds so simple and easy, but when you look at all 17 games that you play, whether that's 3 years ago or this year in particular, there's always one that kind of is in the shadows a little bit, that it's not playing the best game they've ever played. To put together everyone's best game in one game and like throughout the season is it's not realistic in a way. And so what he always says is, can we as a first phase, second phase, third phase, whatever it might be, can we not drag down the other phases? That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for everyone to have explosive plays, but we're looking for you to hit your keys, play your style of football, and not drag everybody else down. So I think, special teams, what a night. Marquise Smith, or Marquise Williams, excuse me, I think he jumped and screamed and was more excited than I've ever seen him in my life.
He's pretty excitable.
I need
That's saying something.
I need the man's vertical. Like the way that he was jumping, I was like, please don't break anything. Please don't break an ankle. But you saw something, like you saw that work for special teams and you saw work for defense. But there's also been so many games where it hasn't worked for special teams and it hasn't worked for defense, but this offense has done really well. So I think what Rackley has kind of taught me is you can't have explosive everyone. All three phases are working and playing the best game they've ever played. You just want to make sure that no phase is pulling the other ones down.
That's a great way to look at it, right? Is not everybody has to be on their A game. It's hard enough to just get like three people sitting in a room to like all feed off each other's energy and be totally in sync and lockstep. The key is just no anchors, right? You don't want to have somebody who's a net negative. Ultimately, you want the sum of the individual parts to be positive, right? And you mentioned KhaDarel Hodge. Like, he played such a great game. He definitely deserves to be in the Pro Bowl. He's got a touchdown this season.
It wasn't just this game. He's been doing this.
He's got a special teams touchdown. He literally caught the game-winning touchdown in overtime against Tampa Bay. He's blown up like fake punts. Yeah. Things of that sort. And he has, yeah. He's played so well, and that's why, like, the special teams all season, shout out to Marquise, has been locked in. He only had one blocked punt yesterday, which I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, he got his hands on two, right? But only one counted.
Yeah, and just sidebar, you can vote for KhaDarel Hodge for the Pro Bowl on our Falcons website, and you can tweet KhaDarel Hodge # Pro Bowl vote and vote him into the Pro Bowl for special teams because he deserves it. You can also vote for any other player with the Falcons on AtlantaFalcons.com and on Twitter we're using # Pro Bowl vote.
Taylor the plug. I love it. Yeah.
What can I say? Just trying to get the guys to the Pro Bowl.
And on the 22nd and 23rd, your vote counts double.
Thank you.
So, but yeah.
Clip it.
Amna, special teams. What'd you love about it?
I just love the way that they were able to execute. Like Taylor had mentioned, like they didn't bring anything down, but they were just able to shine in a way that I don't know that they really had this much this season. Like they've had their moments. Obviously, we talked about KhaDarel, but yeah, when you just see like those guys just excited, I don't know. Whenever I see special teams like people excited, I always get like a little bit like, I don't know. It's just like it gets me going. Like it's just a punt, but it's like.
But I know I think that's why. No,
it's just a punt.
But we're all going crazy, and it's great.
It's just a punt, or it's just an extra kick. Like it's really special teams more often than not, especially in the NFL. It's so routine. So when something happens and a play is made, it's like, oh my gosh, they're doing something. Like
I know.
It's because it's normally just. Just we're moving on. We're doing the next thing.
Usually it's Koo who's making the big plays, and he was 2 for 3, and he was looking better than maybe some points in the season. But it wasn't just like Koo is usually the focal point of special teams. We talked about Pinion, KhaDarel Hodge, Kevin King. Looked really good.
Blocked extra point.
It was a special teams game for them.
Yeah, I know some people are pretty upset at Koo for still missing that one field goal. Look, if he doesn't make the other two, that's a tie ball game. You're going in overtime against the Raiders. So, yes, like you would like to see your kicker be perfect. I love to use the analogy. It would be like if you had a designated free throw taker in basketball. If they come in and they miss like one free throw in a month, people are going to be like, get him out of here. He has one job. sometimes it's hard to do, right? Having that consistency every single game is tough. 2 for 3. You won't take it most weeks, but you needed it last night, and they got it.
As a voice of our generation once said.
I thought you were calling yourself a voice of our generation.
Where is this going?
Hannah Montana said, nobody's perfect.
I think that's the first Hannah Montana reference I've ever
it.
gotten on a podcast I've been a part of.
Wow.
So let's just move right along.
I love that reference, Amna. Thank you.
Yeah,
A voice of our generation.
that was great. Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's. So let's go ahead and look at where everything is shaping up in the NFC South in the playoff race. Tampa Bay looks really good right now, guys. They beat the Chargers, who we all expected were the best team left on their schedule and could maybe beat Tampa Bay. Didn't even come close. 40-17, Tampa won that game. They had over 500 yards of offense. They did not allow the Chargers to pick up a single first down on third down. They were 0 for 6, I believe, in that game. As it stands right now, Tampa Bay has an 83% chance to make the playoffs. The Falcons have a 36% chance to make the playoffs. Taylor, you want to read through the remaining games on the schedule for both teams?
Absolutely. I think I know it by memory, but I will read it off. Tampa will go and play at Dallas. They will then host the Carolina Panthers and host the New Orleans Saints to finish out the regular season. Atlanta will host the New York Giants in Mercedes-Benz Stadium this Sunday, and then they will travel to Washington to play the Commanders, and then they will come back and host the Carolina Panthers to finish the regular season.
Yeah, and on those, Amna, if you were looking at Tampa's schedule, is there one game on there that you kind of say, all right, this may be the last best chance to get them, or do you feel like all three could be up in play?
I feel like at this point, all three of them could be up in play, maybe less so of the Panthers game, but they did give them a run for the Buccaneers money a couple weeks ago.
Division games are always crazy, right?
They are, but I think the Chargers game was really the one that you were looking at, and that was like, okay, if the Chargers do what they've done all season, they take care of the Bucs, then the Falcons do what they need to do against the Raiders, and you're back where you were, and that was like the one that you were really looking at. So, I mean, Dallas just had a win against the Panthers. You hope like maybe they build some confidence there if you're the Falcons. But that's a lot. The Commanders it's not going to be an easy game. So the schedule in terms of ease of schedule is definitely in Tampa's favor there. But yeah, that was the one. I mean, I was scoreboard watching, and I saw 10-17 Chargers, and I was like, okay. I looked back again. It was 40-17, and I was like, okay, this is where we're at.
Yeah, and I think it's not even, it's more than Tampa, right? It's also the Commanders, too. If they lose 2 more games, one of them obviously has to be Atlanta. The Falcons can still qualify for the playoffs. So they have a harder schedule. They host the Eagles this coming Sunday. Then, of course, they host the Falcons, and they travel to Dallas to finish out the regular season. So 2 very big division games for the Commanders. So we'll see what happens for them. But yeah, I wonder if it's more about Washington at this point than it is about Tampa.
It's pointing towards that way, it looks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're Atlanta, you can't overlook the Giants, right? As we just saw on Monday night, anything could happen at any time. But we are getting a little bit of breaking news here on the podcast. The Commanders game, Sunday Night Football, that will be another primetime matchup for the Atlanta Falcons. Do you guys have any live immediate reactions to that happening?
I think there's a lot of good storylines there.
It's going to be juicy.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
I mean,
Raheem returns.
Against Dan Quinn.
I love it.
Sunday Night Football.
Kirk's playing his second return game there. He returned when he was a Minnesota Viking just once, which is, I mean, schedule-wise is interesting. But
yeah, right?
Yeah. So
for somebody who's played 13 seasons, yeah.
Exactly. And so there he is again. Maybe he can get back against a former team this time while he wasn't able to do it against the Vikings.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football. It's I I know that Monday Night Football used to be waiting all day. I know that Monday Night Football used to be like the marquee, like the best game of the week, right? That everyone tuned into. But I really think Sunday Night Football recently has become the marquee game. So to get the marquee game kind of during Christmas weekend is really exciting. And like Carrie Underwood said, waiting all day for Sunday night. I love that song. Like, I will run home from like home games and make sure that I'm sat to listen to her sing Sunday Night Football.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
She is very good, and it is so it's powerful. But I just can't wait.
Just like tears.
I just can't. Right.
Another voice of our generation.
As an advocate, it's so powerful. I just love listening to her sing. I can't wait. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth. It's just fun, honestly, to have the Falcons be in such a relevant game this late in the season. All eyes will be on them once again, and let's hope that they can kind of clean some things up, put their best foot forward, and come away with a win against Washington. But let's close out with one final question. What do you think is going to be, if we're looking at the week ahead, after, again, a win that didn't really feel like a win, what's going to be the number one topic that everybody's talking about this week?
Well, considering it is the most important position in the National Football League, I think the quarterback conversation will continue to be had until there is an enormous big game, lots of explosive plays. I think that's a conversation that will continue to be had.
Amna?
Oh yeah, there's nothing up to it.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. Right, it was the one aspect of Monday night that felt like it was missing. Again, the run game, Bijan, check. Defense, few turnovers, 4 sacks, check. Special teams, great punting, blocked punts, 2 out of 3 on field goals. You'd like 3 out of 3, but you'll take it. Check. It's just that one missing element that was so prevalent in October, and you'd love it to come back.
Yeah. I mean, we could point to the Chargers game and say that was a similar
yes
thing too. So it's a trend that's been asked about for the last few weeks, and it's going to be asked about again.
Yeah, you got to figure it out now because, yes, you can piece together games, like I've mentioned, without having a good or even a great quarterback, but you cannot win in the playoffs without having a good or great quarterback.
Yeah, that's well said. I'm glad you brought up the Chargers game because to give Kirk a little bit of credit, it did feel like he has learned from some of the mistakes he has made recently, right? You could see in moments where he's not the most mobile. I think he would be the first to probably tell you that.
He was taken off.
Yeah, but instead of, all right, let me try to force a ball, I'm going to just run and pick up 3 yards, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to dive forward. He did seem like he was looking underneath a little bit more than maybe he was previously and not trying to force things into some tight windows, right? That first play of the second half, I'm sure he would love to have that back. That was one of the few moments where it felt like he was really kind of just not even looking necessarily ahead. It was trusting a guy to be in a spot, throwing without seeing the full picture, and he got burned on that. But by and large, I do think he matched the conservative mindset appropriately and was doing his part to try to not take the Falcons out of the game the way that he kind of did against the Chargers. So hopefully that is one step in the right direction and that he gets back to being Kirk. Now that the monkey is off the team's back, they're looser. They get everything. They can go back to normal. So that will do it for us today. Amna, thank you so much for joining me. Taylor, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you to Jared, our producer, for his great work on this episode. We will be back Friday to preview the upcoming matchup against the New York Giants. We'll break down everything that has happened throughout the week, what the coaches and players have said, injury situation, all of that. But please like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Great content coming, especially after a victory. That will do it for us, though, and we will see you all next time.
Please vote for Pro Bowl.